joining us at this inaugural Elizabeth Leibson Holocaust Remembrance Lecture. My name is Hetty Foyer. I am Vice President on board with the Jewish History Museum and the Holocaust History Center. This lecture represents our spring fundraiser, so thank you all again for your continued support. The Jewish History Museum campus expanded about 1 year ago this month with the new Holocaust History Center, and it has quickly become a vital space for education, remembrance, and Jewish life in the community. A session at the Holocaust History Center has recently been incorporated into the graduating curriculum for the Tucson Police Department cadets. This spring, we will bring over 1,000 students through our doors through the Biren Family Educational Outreach Program. Last month, we saw over 100 people attend our gallery chat on Japanese internment in Arizona during World War II. These are but a few examples of our community engagement. This evening is a great time to become a member of our vital organization if you have not done so already. We appreciate all of you for being here tonight and are delighted to have Gazer Roaring with us. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Stu Mellon, I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation, and the greatest gift of my work is to get to connect with people who care about our community. With so many choices about how we spend our time and our resources, it's really remarkable when people embrace their values and live their values. And it's been a great pleasure for me to get to know Ron and Kathy Margolis, who really exemplify that with a very, very big heart. Quietly, they have been and continue to be extremely important and generous members of our community. And although it took a little coaxing, Ron has agreed to come up and say a word or two about why he's decided to help us launch this inaugural Elizabeth Leibson lecture. Ron?
Thank you. My wife, Kathy. I'm Ron Margolis, and my mother is Elizabeth Leibson. Kathy is here to make sure I don't run away. My mother was from Hungary, lucky enough to go ahead and move to the United States after World War I. And it's in honor of my mother because, as we all know, without a mother, one does not arrive in the world. And I was lucky to have a loving and kind mother. And with the blessing of God, Kathy and I are able to go ahead and sponsor this event and hopefully other events in the future. I also want to tell everybody what a wonderful job Brian, the head of this project, is doing. He's come here just so quickly with such vitality that he's creating something that will be much more than I ever expected. And he's doing that with the backing of the Jewish Federation and Stuart Mellon, who you just met. Thank you all for being here.
I had the great privilege of meeting Elizabeth, and she has that same warmth and that same sparkle in her eye that I see in Ron. Well, I'm very proud of the ways in which the Federation partners with and supports the efforts of the Jewish History Museum, but clearly the greatest gift that the Federation has given the museum has been the gift of Brian Davis. Staff staff giving leadership to our community relations efforts and our Holocaust education and commemoration efforts. And while still working at the Federation, he was the moving force behind the creation of the Holocaust History Center at the Jewish History Museum, where he now serves as executive director. Brian is also a doctoral candidate at the University of Arizona and an adjunct faculty member at the Center for Judaic Studies, where he teaches a course entitled Jewish Responses to the Holocaust. Geza Rohrig is a Hungarian actor, student of history, and poet. He's best known for his role in the 2015 film Son of Saul, which won the Grand Prix at the 2015 Cannes Film Festival, the Golden Globe, and the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. You'll learn a great deal about Geza tonight, but what you might not learn is that he was the front man for a punk rock band in the 1980s, where in Budapest, where concerts were almost always interrupted by the communist authorities. He graduated from the Academy of Drama and Film in Budapest, has a degree from the Jewish Theological Seminary, and has published many collections of poems. Please join me in welcoming Brian Davis and Geza Rohrig.
Thank you, Hedy, and thanks to the board of directors at the Jewish History Museum. Thanks, Stu, for those very kind words. I heard those. And thanks to the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona for its ongoing partnership on the Holocaust History Center. Thanks to Ron and Kathy Margolis for creating this Elizabeth Leibson Holocaust Remembrance lecture series. I think it's meaningful that you've chosen to remember your mom by creating a lecture series about remembrance. And thank you all for being here. Geza, I've enjoyed spending the last day with you and excited about continuing our conversation here this evening. So thanks so much for helping us inaugurate this lecture series. Last year, around this time, we held our spring fundraiser on the other side of campus at the U of A Dance School. And that was a program that came out of some choreography that was done by a U of A dance professor named Amy Ernst, who choreographed a piece that was meant to evoke the liberation of Auschwitz. So she was working with movement and music, staging, costumes, and the body to try to express something about this moment, the liberation of Auschwitz. And here we are at the U of A School of Music 1 year later, still searching for the meanings that are made through various forms of representation. So we're going to start the conversation by talking about the cinematic medium. And I want to ask you about the possibilities and the limitations that are opened up in addressing this history through the medium of film.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening. Thanks so much for having me. When I, for the very first time, heard about this movie and not yet read the script, I was very skeptical about the undertaking. This genre, the so-called Holocaust movies, a highly unsuccessful genre to me. I maybe with the exception of 2 movies, these movies always left me with frustration, anger, disappointment. They were way too sentimental, Disney-fied, Hollywoodian, tear-jerking sort of movies. Lots of them I felt that are using and abusing the subject matter. They are running stories that have nothing to do with the Holocaust. And out of lack of talent, they run the story in front of a Holocaust background, thinking that the barbed wires and the tattooed numbers and the yellow stars will sort of lend some sort of a dramatic volume to a love story, which is entirely unrealistic and under such conditions. So they talk a lot about the Americanization of this, but and it's, you know, certainly the most movies about the Holocaust were done here. But the effect, you know, went over to Europe as well. So I started to read the script with all my suspicions, and then, like, page 15 in the script, I recognized that these guys, the director and the co-writer of the script, they were very well aware of the pits and the dangers, the traps that must be avoided if someone you know, dares to make a movie about an extermination camp in general and about the epicenter of an extermination camp in particular, because this is sort of the taboo zone that movies it was verboten. You don't supposed to go there. It's unrepresentable people, right? All these nice French intellectuals, philosophers, they all told us, don't go there. It's impossible. And we were, I mean, not me, I think the credit goes to the director, and I know that he has been looking to find the right angle to shoot this movie. He knew that on the one hand, it's impossible to make art. The Holocaust is not filmable, it's not musicable, it's not poemable, and yet it is our duty, time by time, to try it. So by the time I finished the script, I really believed in it.
When you talk about artistic representations of the Holocaust, I knew it was going to come up at some point in this evening that I would reference the Adorno quote from 1949, but I didn't realize it would come up in the first exchange. When Adorno in 1949, the German Jewish philosopher, wrote, to write a poem about Auschwitz is barbaric. Not film, but literary critics have said that no other line in the history of criticism has shaken writers, and I think that extends to all artists. So I hear you sort of evoking that in a way through this challenge of representation.
I mean, I don't think our movie is poetic, so I would show it to Adorno. But of course, you need tremendous responsibility to approach this topic, because there is simply nothing, and I mean nothing, in our lives. We have any experience that would qualify us to sort of believe that there is a way to bridge that gap, which is in between my reality of the 21st century and their reality of being 1944. And we were compelled to make this movie, and when we came up both with the form and the content, that we thought that it's far enough from the formulaic way as it being approached by other movies, by talking about the Sonderkommando, people who are not iconographically identifiable as your usual Auschwitz prisoner who is shaven, who is 80 pounds, you know. These people have hair, these people have a better food ratio, these people shower every night. I don't think before our movie many people even knew what a Sonderkommando is, and unless Holocaust scholars maybe. And when it comes to the form, this aspect ratio, this sort of reduced scope, you know, the field of vision is extremely minimalized. You see my face, right? We are not doing what we called among each other Auschwitz porn. We are not showing you horror, because it would be highly counterproductive. The coping mechanism is such in the human psyche that if it would show you, frontally, piles of corpse and the way it's done and all that, you would react in the 5th minutes in the movie. You would react in a neutral way. You would say like, and there is nothing. You can't go anywhere from there. So we came to the conclusion that less is more, and that the gruesome images have to be out of focus, and that way we leave it to the viewer's imagination to bring it home.
I found these techniques highly effective. We're going to trace sort of a 40-year trajectory of Holocaust-related films and land on Son of Saul, which I saw for the first time the day after the Holocaust History Center opened last February. So we'll do this sort of arc of Holocaust-related films and then return to Son of Saul. And I see in this trajectory something that brings us increasingly closer to the dark center of the history that I think Son of Saul hits. So I would begin this trajectory by referencing the NBC miniseries Holocaust, which came out in 1978, starred Meryl Streep and James Woods, was widely viewed across this country, and also sparked a very strong reaction from Holocaust survivors who saw their experiences whitewashed through this film. So I don't think it's a coincidence that the very next year in 1979, the Fortunoff Archive at Yale was initiated in some ways as a reaction to this mini-series to record the voices, the testimonials of Holocaust survivors in a formal archive. And then I would jump 15 years forward to Spielberg's Schindler's List in 1993, and then we can go forward to 2015 and Son of Saul. I think there's clearly a relationship between the reception of Holocaust-related films and other developments in the arena of Holocaust remembrance. So why don't we start by watching a few clips from Schindler's List, and we're going to lead off by actually touching another form of representation, the very well-known musical motif from the score of Schindler's List. So we'll hear that first, and then we'll see a sequence of clips. If we can cue those up now.
Rabbi,
Private property cannot be confiscated.
I do not know the answer
Article
to that question.
47.
No, you
Pillage
don't know
is formally
anything. I'm
prohibited.
familiar with the Hague Convention.
They come into our house and tell us we don't live there anymore. It now belongs to a certain SS officer.
Please, I only know what they tell me, and what they tell me changes from day to day.
Aren't you supposed to be able to help?
Familiar with it.
I mean, what if I just took this thing off? What are they going to do about it?
They will shoot you. So why don't you stop?
obviously the right place. How are you doing?
You could not be better.
It could be worse.
Oh, tell me, how on earth could it possibly be worse?
Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Spokojnie, następny, tak.
Oh, Wilbert. Polek. What's this? The Judenratssitzung police now, Polek.
Don't say.
Ordnungsdienst. I'm a policeman now, could you believe it? I know it's hard to believe.
Oh, no, it's not hard to believe.
It's a good record, Polek. The only record here. Look, maybe I could put in a good word for you and us superiors.
Your superiors?
Come on, they're not as bad as everyone says. Well, they're worse than everyone says, but it's a lot of money. A lot of money.
Give me my housing assignment.
You look funny in that head, Goldberg. You look like a clown, you know.
You can pause it there. So in the clips that we watched, we see occupation, classification, registration, symbolization, expropriation, forced relocation, all of these elements of the genocidal process. But in terms of this cinematic representation, I know that you have a lot to say about this film, and you've had conversations with Steven Spielberg about this project and The Son of Saul. So what is your reaction to these clips here?
Well, this is a very, basically Spielberg walks you through the narrative, and I think it has a tremendous educational value. And I wasn't living in this country at the time, but I know that lots of survivors came out of the shadow because of Schindler's List. So this movie did a lot of good things, I think, in American or North American society. And at the same time, I have to say that I'm sure I'm not the first or the last. I do believe that it doesn't do justice, to what really happened. In other words, to pick a German rescuer, it's fine. There were German rescuers, not many. And the problem is mostly two problems. One is that the movie, if you remember, starts colored and it ends colored. And in between, you got 3 hours of black and white. But the fact that it's colored again at the end, when the Schindler's Jews, come with their children and grandchildren. Now that gives you the idea that the Holocaust was an episode in the human history, and it's over. And I do not see how history turned the page on the Holocaust. I think it's a permanent possibility. I do not see how the world has learned, and I think the frequency, how it occurred, it might have happened in other continents with other people in other ways, but the indifference and the incapability of the world's leaders to stop these sort of things is eerily similar than what happened there. So the other problem, besides this coloring again, and by doing that, basically telling you in cinematographic terms, oh, it was really dark and terrible, but it's behind us. I think that's misunderstanding of how watershed, how the significance